All right, so basically this is a modification of the opening range type of system here, right? So it's basically just an opening range here. And the difference here is that the trade signals are going to be delayed until the next block of time. So we can see here on number 6, right, we're identifying these 15-minute blocks of time here, right? So since our opening range ends at 10:30, Eastern time there, right? So the first block of time, really this block of time here is really kind of canceled out. It's not being utilized, but just to keep going with the basics, right? We're identifying these 15-minute blocks of time here, until 2 o'clock. So whenever so with number 8, so when a breakout occurs, right? So when a breakout occurs, we want the trade, or in BloodHound's case, the trade signal, right? We want the trade signal to occur, right, on the first bar of the next block of time, right? So if we get if price breaks out, right, during the first 15 minutes after the opening range, then that breakout signal is to be delayed until the next or the following block of time. So that's really kind of the key lesson to this question for today, which is, taking a signal, right? So obviously BloodHound's going to be identifying, when price, breaks out of the range, right? That's the primary condition. But then we're going to delay it until where is it? There we go. We're going to delay it until the next block of time. All right, so that's it in a nutshell. All right, so I need to first kind of finish setting up the indicator here. So let's see here. So the opening range time period has, no, it hasn't ended yet. Wait, yes it has. Yeah, it has. Okay, it has. So, all right, I'm having to do a little bit of a time zone conversion in my head here. All right, so I need to finish getting the opening range indicator set up here. So I am using the Lizard Trader, right? The AMA opening range indicator here to get this done. And let's see, it says exchange chime. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I must be reading this as the exchange means Central Time. All right, so if I move that, let's see. Oh, here we go. All right, let me get these colors adjusted here. All right, I think that's good enough. Let me save myself a indicator template. There we go. All right, for next time. All right, there we go. Yeah, now it's at the correct starting time for my time zone. Okay, so there we go. So we have our opening range indicator set up there. And so let's see, we don't have a breakout yet, not today. So let's go back to yesterday, and so we can work with that. And what do we have yesterday? Oh, wow. There we go. Okay, there's a breakout. And let's see, what time is this? So this is at the end of one of those blocks of time, right? So we can see that the time there is at 9:45. And so we'd want the signal to occur on the next bar, which would be the beginning of the next block, right? The next 15-minute block there of time. So let's see here. All right, there we go. So that'll just kind of help us visualize what block of time we're in. And I went a little too far. All right. So with this being, let's get a couple of the obvious things out of the way here. So with this being a 5-minute chart, right, and these blocks of time being 15 minutes, right, that's obviously only 3 bars per block of time there, right? So, so we only need to, so we're only shifting the signal forward, a maximum of 3 bars there. So, all right, so let's see. We'll get back to that in a moment. So let's just build the underlying breakout signal, right? So basically, number 2 is our basic opening range breakout signal. So, and then we'll move on to shifting that signal forward in time to the next block of time. So, all right, let's see here. So let's get BloodHound open and get it set up for today's workshop. All right, there we go. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, provide a name here, provide a file name so that all of our work gets saved to that file. So let's open that up and put in today's date. All right, today is Friday the 13th. All right, there we go. We have our file name in. Sorry, it's Thursday the 13th, not Friday. Let's see here. All right, so what kind of name should I give this system here? All right, I guess I'll just call it a signal shift, just to kind of keep it short here. So, all right, the basic opening range signal is pretty simple, right? It's just a comparison solver. So we're comparing the close of the bar to the lower plot or the upper plot, right, of the range. All right, so we need a comparison solver. There we go. We'll put that on there. And we're comparing the close of the bar to the opening range, obviously. All right, so input A, that's going to be the closing price of the bar. So we're going to change the type to price, and the closing price is the default, so we're good to go there. And input B, that will be the opening range indicator. All right, so this is where I need to remember all the settings I had to put in there. So, all right, so let's see. So again, this is one of the Lizard Trader indicators there from their quote free library section. Let's see, it's a little further down. There we go. All right, there's our opening range indicator. And I moved this to the Eastern Standard Time. And the time was adjusted a little bit. So we have a 1 hour opening range. There we go. And let's see, I can leave all this stuff here. The rest of this, I don't think it's going to make any difference in calculating the opening range. So I'll just leave all that the way it is. But what is important, obviously, is figuring out which plot, are we comparing the close of the bar against. So for a long signal, obviously that would be the opening range high. And then for a short signal, I would assume that would be the opening range low. And let's see, what else do we have? Let's see. Oh yeah, so this indicator has a pre-high and a pre-low, and it also has the midpoints as well. So, all right. Okay, so let's see what we get. And perfect. So we can see, we get a short signal every time that the close is below the lower opening range, right? And of course, when price goes back inside the range, then there's no signal. All right, so there we go. There's our raw signal there. So now we can work on producing these blocks of time, right? These 15-minute blocks of time, and then work on taking the signal here and extending it forward, right? So, so one of the things we're also going to need is, we only want. Actually, I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, I was thinking of adding a signal blocker to this, but I don't think it matters. Yeah, well, I guess maybe we'll circle back around to the signal blocker if we find out that it's actually necessary here. So, but what we will need is a signal extender. So that is how we're going to take, right, the signal that from this block of time and to shift it forward to the first bar in the next block of time, right? Is we're going to use the signal extender to do that. And as we found out, right, there's only 3 bars per block of time. So the most we need to shift a signal forward is 3 bars, right? So for example, let's say we'll just pretend that maybe the breakout happened on this bar. Then we only need, right, to shift the signal from this bar forward a maximum of 3 bars to get that signal shifted into the next block of time, right? That's maximum of 3 bars. So we want to knock down the extend signal 4, knock that down to 3. All right, we're going to connect that there. All right, it's always good to name your nodes so that way you know what they're doing, right? So this is just a 3-bar signal extender. Now, of course, if we look at this, it's just going to look like a continuous, set of short signals there, obviously, because this is not shifting the signal, this is extending the signal forward. So, all right. So now is a good time to basically define these blocks of time, and more specifically, we want to identify, let's see, where does it say here? We want to identify the first candle of each of those blocks of time, right? The first candle there. So that is going to be a bunch of threshold solvers to do that. Should probably give these a time here. All right, so I'll just call this 10:45. And well, let's see. Is it? Now let's actually do 9:45. All right. So I'm gonna have to convert all this stuff. So these times do need to be converted to whatever your time zone is because of the indicator that we have to use. One thing that was kind of nice is this opening range indicator from Lizard Trader actually allowed you to select the time zone, right? So you can see, right, you can actually select the time zone for the times that you put in there, right? And that capability is very, very rare. I think this is the only indicator I've ever seen that actually has a time zone selection in it. So that's pretty unique to this. So 99.9% of the indicators out there that have a time input, it's going to be you're going to input that time based on your time zone here. So when I build this, all of these threshold solvers that are identifying each block of time, they are going to be adjusted for my time zone here. So that way things work out correctly on my chart. So, right. So just make sure that, when you download this, that you will have to go through each of these threshold solvers and adjust these the times to your time zone here, right? And so the indicator that we're going to use for this is going to be the Shark Indicators TimeBlock indicator, right? So this is just one of those free indicators here, included, as one of those kind of support tool free indicators here included. And the TimeBlock indicator, it does run on your local time zone. So let's see here. So the only thing that's important is just the starting time, right? So we can ignore the end time because the output that we're going to use is we want to identify the start bar, right? We want to identify that start bar, right? And the start bar is based on the start time. Right? So we can click OK, and there we have it, right? So there is our output identifying, right, that 9:45 block of time. So, but we do need to make an adjustment here because we need a long and a short output, right? So the signal that we want from this period of time, right, that's not a trade signal. That's just identifying a period of time, right? So it's not a trade directional filter or bias, right? It's identifying time, and time doesn't tell you anything about whether you should be trading long or short, right? It's just time. So when you're creating a solver, right, that's just identifying something that's non-directional, then you almost always want a long and a short output, right? Because you don't know what direction the trade's going to be, right? And so in our case, it's going to be a short trade. So we need a short output included with this long output. And so to do that, we need to make some adjustments here to the threshold rules, right? And what we're going to adjust this to is we're going to set it to equals, and we're going to set the value to 1 there. So if we hit apply, there we go. Now we get a long and a short output, right? So why are we setting the threshold solver up, to identify when the time block equals a value of 1? What is it that equals a value of 1? Yeah, so let's backtrack here a little bit, and let's go back to the time block indicator, right? So if you notice, all of these outputs are a bool series, and a bool series, a boolean, is a true or false, right? True or false, 0 or 1, right? So with computers, a false condition is 0. A true condition equals 1, right? So all of these outputs being true or false actually equate to 0 or 1, right? So there's no numeric value, of like 3 or 4 or 5. They're all either 0 or 1 because they're true or false, right? If you look at all the outputs, if you scroll down here, they're all bool series, right? Because all this is doing is the time block indicator is just identifying, is it the start bar? Is it the ending bar? Is it before the starting time, ending time, so on and so forth, right? So in any case, on the documentation page, right, there is a video that explains in detail how this indicator works and what all the outputs do, right? So if you need to use this for other purposes, definitely go to the documentation page for the time block indicator, and watch that video, or just read the documentation, and that'll explain what each of these outputs do here. So, all right, so so again, back to the threshold rules, right? We want to identify when that start bar occurs, and that would be a true, and a true equals 1. So, all right, so there we go. So there is 9:45, and so now I'm just going to have to make a bunch copies here, like so on and so forth. And yeah, I'm only going to make a handful of these just to get the concept built. So I'm not going to build this all the way out, right? So so Mike, you will have to build all the rest of these threshold solvers here to get all the way to that 2 o'clock ending time there. So, but this will be good. This should be good enough to just build the system here. So, all right. So let's see here. So the next block of time will be 10, like so. So let's connect that up. All right. So there's the 10 o'clock block of time, and so we need to go into the time block indicator, right, and adjust our settings here. And it looks like my computer locked up for a moment. There we go. Okay. All right, so there we go. There's 10. And there we go. So we can see the signal now has shifted over to 10 a.m. And let me just do another one here. All right, so 10:15. And let's connect that in. And again, open up the indicator. Adjust that time. All right, yep, so there we go. There's 10:15. And let's do the last one here. All right, so 10:30. And there we go. There's 10:30. All right, so there we go. So we got at least four of those time blocks built. And next, we're going to join them all together using an OR node. Right, so if we look at this OR node, right, I connect the first one in. There we go. Connect the second one in. Right, there we go. The third one, right, there's our 3 signals there, and the fourth one. Right. So we can see we have a signal output identifying the beginning of each of those blocks of time. Right. So now you may be asking yourself, but wait a minute, the signal is at the end of the block of time. It's not actually at the beginning. Right. Well, that's because of the way this was phrased. Right. Yeah, so the trade is to be opened at the first candle, right? So based on the way NinjaTrader works, right, when this candle closes, right, the next candle opens. So obviously we need the signal at the time the last candle closes in the previous block of time, right? So when this candle closes, or when this bar closes, the next bar opens, right? So, let's see here. Okay, so we have our, let's see. All right, yeah, I guess I'll just call this time blocks for now. Sounds good enough. So we're going to connect this into the signal extender. And actually, let's see. Yeah, actually, we only need to. So I kind of made, yeah. So if you notice here, I made a mistake in stating that we need to extend for 3 bars here. So actually, we only need to extend for 2 bars. Yeah. So right, because we do want the signal on the last bar within each of these blocks of time. So if the signal, right, is happening here, then we're shifting it forward only 2 bars there. There. All right, so for the signal blocker, there we go. I knocked it down to 2 there. And let's see here. All right, so the next thing, so we will need a signal blocker. Yeah, we will need a signal blocker, so we can see here, right, we're getting all these continuous signals here. So we do need a signal blocker. So let's pop a signal blocker in here, like so. and we only need to block for two bars there. Yeah, maximum of 2 bars. And yeah, let's see. I'm not. So this seems to be working perfectly. And yeah, maybe. I don't know. My gut tells me that we need to use the reset on the signal blocker here. Yeah, I'm going to connect, right, our blocks of time into this signal blocker just in case, even though, I can see that everything is looking correct. Right. In other words, we're not seeing any signals in between, right? We're only getting a signal on the last bar of each block of time, right? So that way, a trade will get opened when the next bar opens on the following bar. So everything is looking correct, but normally we would need to be resetting the signal blocker. But so this time, I guess the reason why resetting the signal blocker does not seem to be necessary is because we have a precise number of bars in each of these blocks of time. Yeah, so it does seem to be all working out there, but in any case, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna leave that connected to the signal blocker. Let's see. All right, so we do have a rogue signal here that happened in the middle, right, of this block of time here. So let's see what happened. Well, actually, yeah, it should be pretty obvious, right? This is at 11:10, and so, right, we don't have a signal for that block of time, right? We stopped at 10:30, so that would be the reason why. So let's kind of break this down here, right? So remember, this comparison solver, right, is creating our raw opening range breakout signal. And so let's see here. Yeah, so we can see that bar did close one tick or maybe 2 ticks below, right, the lower range, and so that generated the signal. So essentially our signal extender is not extending it forward. So all right, so let's make a few more of these timestamp solvers here. Let's see. All right, so we have that one. Okay, so we need one more here. And there we go. All right, so we got to the end of that block of time. All right, let's see if that fixed it. And no, that didn't fix it. All right, so for some reason, the signal extender is not extending that signal. Just see that's working correctly. And oh, okay. Hold on. Let's just reload the chart here. And no. So I'm missing something here. Just trying to figure out what am I missing. Oh, okay. All right. I see the problem. All right. Actually, so the problem was this initial design actually was not correct. It looked like it was correct because all of these bars are producing a signal in here. Okay, so this actually kind of revealed that the design of this was not correct. Yeah, that's right. Because I was seeing signals that looked perfect, I totally, left out the last component here, which I had in my mind at the beginning. So the last thing we need to do is we need a AND node, and yeah, so we need to combine the signal. Actually, let's see here. Actually, yeah, that's why we didn't need the signal blocker. Let me get rid of that signal blocker. Yeah, all right, there we go. There we go. Okay, yeah, so I kind of threw myself off here by throwing in that signal blocker. Oh yeah, by the way, if you ever notice that this thing will just kind of squeaks forward, yeah, sometimes it'll do that. So, not sure why we haven't found that, what causes that yet, but let's see. Let's see. Wow, it's kind of stuck doing that now. Huh. Yeah, well, let's see. Let's just close the interface. And it's still doing that. Huh. There we go. Okay. There. All right. So anyways, all right. So back to the system here. Yeah. Instead of a signal blocker, yeah, we needed an AND node, and that was my, this was my design, but that signal blocker kind of sidetracked me here, threw me off here a little bit, and so the AND node, the reason why we're using the AND node here, right, is remember that this OR node, right, it's identifying each bar where that block of time ends, right, where it ends, and that is also where we need the signal, right? So if the signal happens earlier in the previous one or two bars, right, then we're using the signal extender, right, to shift it forward, no more than 2 bars, and then let's see here. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So we will leave the reset unconnected there, but when we look at the signal extender, right, we know that this bar here, right, broke out of the range, and so that is the core breakout range signal. And then the signal extender, we can see, right, it's extending it forward 2 bars, right, by at least 2 bars. And of course, it's extending it outside, right, outside of our time block, right, our period of time there. And so that's why we're using the OR node with this, the AND node with this OR node. And there we get our cleaned up signal. All right, so with that, I'm just trying to think if there's one more thing maybe unaccounted for. So, but let's just close that out and let's look back at some prior days here during the week. Just confirming everything looks good. All right. And let's see. Okay, so luckily, let's see what this was on Tuesday, I believe. Yeah, Tuesday. And so luckily, we do have our price breaking out. During those time periods that we actually have solvers for. Yeah, so there we go. There's 10, 10:15, 10:30, 11, and 11:15. And if we look at a little closer, right, that's the bar that actually broke out. Let's see, so why do we have a signal here? Well, because, technically, both of these bars here, both of these bars are outside there. So, right. Now, another kind of approach to this, right, because maybe you don't consider these as, breakout bars. However, the way this is written is just, when the close is above or below the range, right? But a lot of people only consider when price crosses out of the opening range that is your legitimate breakout signal, right? So these actually aren't breakout signals. These are just signals outside the range, right? Anytime the closing price is outside the range, that's a signal. So this actually isn't a breakout. These aren't breakout signals per se, right? So if you wanted to restrict these signals to just the breakout signal, like for example that one, that one, and I think that would be those would be the two breakout bars, as price is coming from inside, right, and breaking above the range there. So if you did want to kind of limit that, then that is just a simple matter of replacing this comparison solver with a crossover solver, right? Because a true breakout is when price crosses above or below some kind of support resistance levels, right? That's actually a crossover condition there. Let's see here. All right, so let's get this crossover set up. So essentially, this crossover solver is going to be set up exactly the same way as this comparison solver, right? Input A is going to be the close price of the bar. Input B is going to be the opening range indicator, right? So there we go. Input A is the closing price, and input B, we need to switch that over to the opening range here. Let's use a little search box here. There we go. Opening range. And again, set this to Eastern time. There. And get our plots selected correctly. And yeah, there we go, right? So now, right, we can see the crossover solver actually identifies those break aboves, right? Those breakout aboves, whereas the comparison solver just identifies every single bar that is outside the range, right? Yeah, there we go. There's even more there. So, right, so obviously you can see that that's going to make a big difference between the number of signals that you would get from this system here. Right. And so depending on, what your criteria is, you could just connect one, either the crossover or the comparison. So just connect one of these into the signal extender, and there you go. So, right, so with that, right, we have two signals there versus, right, 5 signals, right? And let's go one day forward here. Yeah, here we go. So here's where we were working, right? So we had a bunch of signals there, using the comparison solver. And then if we substitute the crossover solver, right, we can see our number of signals now have been reduced because you need price to go back inside the range and then cross outside the range. And yeah, so in here, right, in here we can see price is remaining outside the range. And only when price goes back inside the range and then crosses back out, then we get a signal, right? So that eliminated a couple of signals there, right? So there you go. There's two ways that you can kind of mix and match and choose, you know, what is your core signal source there. All right, so with that, that should do it. And so let me go to the Q&A window here and see if we have any follow-up questions for this. Let's see. All right, so Mike is saying only interested in the first bar to close above or below the range. Only the first bar. Okay. All right, yeah, so if you only want the first bar, then you would definitely need a signal blocker here. So let's throw a signal blocker in here. And let's see here. I'm not sure how many bars we need to block for. Yeah, so let's just say, all right, so with the signal blocker, let's just say we need to block for, I think 50 bars should be enough. Let's see, each of those is 3 bars. Yeah, I think 50 bars on a 5-minute chart. 50 bars should be good enough there, like so. And then the key would be, the key would be tying in one of these threshold solvers here. Let's see, so the first one, so I'm going to add one more of these threshold solvers here with the let's see, the 10:30 Eastern time. All right, so for me that would be 8:30. So let's make one of those. All right, so I'm going to copy this 1031 and paste it up there. All right. Adjust the name and then go in and adjust the time block. There we go. All right, so there we go. Right, so we have a signal identifying when the opening range comes to an end. Right, and so when that opening range ends, that is when we need to reset the signal blocker. Right, so we'll make sure, right, because we want to make sure that definitely the signal blocker is not blocking any signals after the opening range, begins. Right, so we're resetting the signal blocker right there on that. So now, there we go. So with this signal blocker blocking for 50 bars, again, I think 50 bars is enough, right, to get us to basically the end of the day there. If you do, actually, well, let's check back a couple of days. Let's see, no signals there. Let's see, let's also do this. So if you notice, the signal blocker has this output here, and it's called actively blocking. So this is to help you debug the signal blocker. All right, so this provides extra information from your signal blocker. And so we can see how long the signal blocker is blocking for. And so actually, yeah, so here on this day, the signal blocker, let's see, well, it did actually go to the end. Yeah, it did go to the end of the trading day. However, the opening range indicator is still active, right? So the opening range indicator could still generate a signal here after the market's closed. So what we want to see is this active blocking output here. Let me just mark it here to make sure, right? So this is telling us that the signal blocker is actively blocking signals, but we do have a few bars here where signals could get through. So let's just, we'll increase this to 75 and call it good. There we go. All right, so now the active blocking, is outside the range there. And, yeah, that looks like it's enough, but you know what? I'm just going to increase it one more time. Let's just go for 100 bars. There we go. All right, so looking at how far the signal blocker is actively blocking, and so if we took this signal and shifted it forward to when the opening range begins, that's right there on that bar. Yeah, that definitely looks like the signal blocker is blocking for enough bars there, so we should be good to go at that point. All right, so with having this, so technically speaking, the signal blocker doesn't actually need to be reset on this chart because this is a 24-hour period chart, right? So we can see that the signal blocker, right, it turns off during the ETH time, right? So obviously during late at night, that signal blocker is no longer actively blocking, right? So it's ready to go by the time the next morning goes by. But but you got to think to yourself, well, what happens if you change your trading hours on your chart and you set your trading hours to RTH, right? Now you go from the end of the day and there's no overnight bars for the signal blocker to basically stop blocking, right? And we can see that the signal blocker is blocking into the next day, right here, right? So the day ends right here and the signal blocker is blocking into the next morning, right? Because we changed our trading hours, right? We stripped out all those bars in between. And so if that is the case here, then we definitely need to reset the signal blocker, right? And as soon as I connected that, right, as soon as I connected this, well, let me move that guy back down. As soon as I connected in that 8:30 a.m. Time identifier into the reset, look right there. So the signal blocker stopped blocking by the next morning there, right? So when the opening range ended on the next morning, the signal blocker was ready to go to start blocking, right, for the next morning there. Right, so it's good to have this connected in, just in case. But if you're using a standard 24-hour chart, it's not technically necessary. So right there we go. Let's put that back there. All right, so there we go. So now that's only one. That's only the first bar that closes outside the range. Okay.